Show me proof of citizenship right now, or I will arrest you right now.
I am a United States citizen.
When you're trespassing, show me a warrant or get off my property.
We have right to do everything.
Officer Derek Paulson had responded to hundreds of noise complaints during his 7 years with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. Most followed a predictable pattern: approach the residence, make contact with occupants, issue a warning or citation, and clear the scene within 15 minutes. He developed what he considered an efficient system, one that his supervisors had commended in multiple performance reviews. On this particular evening in late September, he pulled his patrol vehicle to the curb outside a modest single-family home on Magnolia Street in Corona, California, expecting another routine call. What followed would become a federal civil rights case. Dr. Maria Elena Cordero was born in San Antonio, Texas, 42 years earlier to a family whose American roots stretched back 5 generations. She held a doctorate in educational psychology from the University of Southern California and had spent the past decade working as a school district administrator, developing intervention programs for at-risk youth. Her work had earned recognition from the California Department of Education, and she'd presented her research at national conferences. On this September evening, she was hosting a small gathering, her sister's birthday celebration with fewer than a dozen family members, most of whom had driven from Los Angeles and San Bernardino to attend. The incident was captured by multiple recording devices under clear evening conditions. Officer Paulson's body camera activated automatically when he exited his vehicle at 8:47 p.m. The home's doorbell security camera provided a front-facing perspective with excellent resolution. A neighbor's exterior security system recorded portions of the interaction from an elevated angle across the street. The September weather was mild, approximately 72 degrees, with no precipitation. Ambient streetlights and the home's porch lighting created well-lit conditions that would later prove crucial for evidence quality. Each camera angle would offer unique value in documenting what transpired. The case would eventually result in a settlement of $10.5 million. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please subscribe. These educational stories about constitutional rights need wider understanding, and your support helps us create more content. Officer Derek Paulson, badge 2847, had accumulated 4 documented civilian complaints during his tenure with the department. 3 involved allegations of excessive authority during traffic stops. 1 concerned his approach to questioning individuals he suspected of immigration violations. Despite these complaints, his personnel file contained commendations for arrest productivity and supervisor evaluations, describing him as proactive and assertive in enforcement. He operated under assumptions shaped by years of pattern recognition, assumptions about who belonged in certain neighborhoods and who warranted additional scrutiny. In previous situations, his approach had rarely been challenged. Officers generally deferred to his experience, and civilians typically complied without question, even when his legal basis was questionable. This situation would prove different in ways he didn't anticipate. The call came through dispatch at 8:39 p.m. An anonymous neighbor reported loud music and possible disturbance at the Magnolia Street address. The complaint provided minimal detail, no specific threats, no mention of violence, no indication of criminal activity beyond noise. Standard protocols for such calls typically involved a knock-and-talk approach. Make contact, assess the situation, request voluntary compliance with noise ordinances, and depart unless additional violations were observed. Officer Paulson activated his vehicle's mobile data terminal, reviewed the address history, no prior calls for service, and drove to the location. He did not request backup initially. His body camera activated as he approached the residence, recording his stride up the concrete walkway, past neatly maintained landscaping, toward the front door where voices and music were audible from inside. He knocked firmly, 3 deliberate strikes that resonated through the evening quiet. The door opened within seconds and Dr. Maria Cordero appeared, backlit by warm interior lighting, still holding a glass of wine from the celebration. Behind her, family members continued their conversation. unaware that the next 27 minutes would be documented from multiple angles, capturing what federal courts would later examine as a clear violation of Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure. The home's interior glowed with warm amber lighting from overhead fixtures and table lamps, creating comfortable visibility throughout the front rooms. Outside, the porch light cast a bright circle around the entrance, while streetlights provided additional illumination across the front yard. Temperature had dropped to 68 degrees, pleasant for the late September evening. Dr. Cordero had been moving between her kitchen and living room, refilling appetizer trays for her guests, when she heard the knock. Music played at moderate volume from a speaker system, audible but not overwhelming. Her sister's laughter echoed from the dining area. The doorbell camera captured the scene from above and to the right, while Officer Paulson's body camera recorded straight ahead, both devices providing clear audio and high-definition video. Dr. Cordero smiled as she opened the door, assuming perhaps a neighbor was stopping by or a guest was arriving late. Her expression shifted to polite curiosity when she saw the uniform. "Good evening, officer. Can I help you?" Officer Paulson stood with feet shoulder-width apart, one hand resting near his duty belt, his posture suggesting authority rather than routine inquiry. Both cameras were recording. "We received a noise complaint about this address. I need to see identification from everyone inside the residence." Dr. Cordero's eyebrows rose slightly. Her tone remained courteous but uncertain. "I'm sorry. Identification from everyone? There are just family members here for a birthday party. Is there a specific problem with the noise level?" "Ma'am, I need to see identification. Are you the homeowner?" "Yes, I am. But I'm not sure I understand. What specific violation are you investigating?" Dr. Cordero shifted her weight, her free hand moving to the doorframe. The body camera captured her face clearly. No aggression, no hostility, simply a professional woman seeking clarity about an unexpected demand. Officer Paulson's jaw tightened. "I'm investigating a noise complaint and possible ordinance violations. I need identification from all occupants to verify residency status." The phrase landed with weight. Dr. Cordero's expression changed, recognition flickering across her features. She set her wine glass on a nearby entry table, her movements deliberate and calm. "Officer, I need to understand something. Under the Fourth Amendment, you need either probable cause, a warrant, or my consent to enter my home or demand identification from my guests. Which of those applies here?" The body camera recorded Officer Paulson stepping closer to the threshold, his boot now inches from the doorway. "Ma'am, I'm conducting an investigation. You need to cooperate." Dr. Cordero maintained her position in the doorway, neither backing away nor blocking it aggressively. Her voice remained steady, though neighbors who would later review the footage noted a slight tremor beneath her composure. "I'm happy to lower the music volume if that's the concern. But I'm asking what specific crime you suspect has been committed that would justify demanding identification from people inside my private residence." From inside the house, her sister appeared in the hallway behind her, concern visible on her face. Additional family members began gathering, sensing something wrong. The doorbell camera captured their silhouettes filling the background. Officer Paulson's hand moved to his radio. "I can call for backup and we can do this the hard way, or you can provide the identification I've requested. I have reason to believe there may be individuals here who are unlawfully present in the United States." The words hung in the air, captured crisply by both audio systems. Dr. Cordero took a slow breath, visible on camera as her shoulders rose and fell. "What specific evidence do you have to support that belief?" "I don't need to explain my investigation to you. Actually, under Terry v. Ohio and subsequent Fourth Amendment jurisprudence, you do need articulable reasonable suspicion to detain someone or demand identification. You need specific facts, not hunches, that criminal activity is occurring." Dr. Cordero's professional background hadn't included legal training, but like many educated Americans concerned about civil rights, she'd read extensively about constitutional protections. Her voice carried the careful precision of someone choosing words deliberately. Officer Paulson's face flushed, visible even in the porch lighting. Ma'am, step aside. I'm coming in to verify immigration status. I do not consent to a search. You do not have a warrant. What probable cause do you have? Dr. Cordero remained in the doorway, not physically blocking it but not retreating either. A second patrol vehicle pulled to the curb, its lights washing blue and red across the scene. Deputy Jennifer Walsh, Paulson's frequent partner, approached from the sidewalk. Her body camera activated as she reached the walkway, providing a third recording angle. The footage would later show her hesitant expression as she assessed the situation. What are the requirements for lawful detention? Comment your thoughts below. This case raises questions about how Fourth Amendment protections apply in practice and whether proper procedures were followed in this situation. Officer Paulson gestured toward Dr. Cordero. She's refusing to provide identification and obstructing an investigation. Dr. Cordero turned slightly to address Deputy Walsh, keeping both officers in view. I've asked what crime is being investigated. I've asked for the specific facts supporting reasonable suspicion. I've stated I do not consent to entry into my home. I'm not obstructing. I'm exercising Fourth Amendment rights. Deputy Walsh's body camera captured her uncertain glance toward her partner, but she remained silent, positioning herself beside him without intervention. Dr. Cordero reached slowly into her back pocket, her movements deliberate and visible to both officers. She withdrew her driver's license and held it forward. This is my California driver's license showing this address. I'm offering this voluntarily, not because you have legal authority to demand it, but to demonstrate I'm the homeowner. Officer Paulson took the license, examined it under his flashlight, and handed it back. I still need identification from everyone inside. On what legal basis? Dr. Cordero's question was clear, documented by 3 cameras. You can provide it voluntarily or I can arrest you for obstruction. The neighbor's security camera captured the moment from across the street. Officer Paulson stepping forward, Dr. Cordero standing her ground, Deputy Walsh shifting uncomfortably beside her partner. Inside the house, someone had begun recording on a cell phone as well. Dr. Cordero's sister stepped forward, her phone raised and visible. My name is Dr. Maria Elena Cordero, she said, her voice projecting clearly for all recording devices. I am a United States citizen, born in San Antonio, Texas. I am standing in the doorway of my home, which I own. Officer Paulson, badge 2847, is threatening to arrest me for asking about the legal basis for his demands. This is a Fourth Amendment issue, the constitutional protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. I am not physically resisting. I am asking for constitutional due process. Officer Paulson reached for her arm. Turn around. You're under arrest for obstruction. The metallic click of handcuffs closing around Dr. Cordero's wrists registered clearly on all 4 recording devices, 3 body cameras and the doorbell system. She stood with her back to Officer Paulson, her hands secured behind her, her breathing controlled but rapid. The well-lit porch area captured every detail. Her sister's shocked expression in the doorway, family members crowding behind with phones raised, Deputy Walsh's visible discomfort as she maintained her position without verbal objection. Dr. Cordero's voice remained steady despite the circumstances. I am not physically resisting. I have complied with the handcuffing. I am being arrested for asking about Fourth Amendment protections while standing in my own doorway. She turned her head slightly, addressing the multiple cameras. I am a United States citizen. I was born in San Antonio, Texas, on March 15, 1982. I have broken no law. Officer Paulson guided her toward the patrol vehicle parked at the curb, one hand on her upper arm. Neighbors had emerged from adjacent homes, drawn by the flashing lights. Several held phones, recording from various angles. Dr. Cordero's sister stood frozen in the doorway, tears streaming down her face as other family members moved to comfort her. An older woman, Dr. Cordero's mother, as later testimony would establish, rushed forward from inside the house. She's my daughter. She was born in Texas. We're American citizens. The anguish in her voice carried across the quiet street, captured by the neighbor's elevated security camera. Officer Paulson did not respond. He opened the rear door of his vehicle and guided Dr. Cordero inside, the interior camera activating as she settled onto the seat. The doorbell footage showed her final glance back at her home before the door closed. Her expression composed but her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The drive to the Robert Presley Detention Center lasted 18 minutes. Interior camera footage documented Dr. Cordero sitting upright, handcuffed behind her back, occasionally wincing as the vehicle turned corners. Officer Paulson drove in silence. Deputy Walsh followed in her own vehicle, and her body camera footage from inside her car would later reveal her quiet comment to herself. "This doesn't feel right." They arrived at the detention facility at 9:32 p.m. The processing area was illuminated by harsh fluorescent lighting that rendered everything in stark detail on the security cameras mounted throughout the intake zone. Sergeant Thomas Rivera, a 15-year veteran handling intake that evening, greeted Officer Paulson with professional detachment. "What do we have?" "Obstruction of an investigation. Refusing to provide identification. Interfering with immigration status verification." Officer Paulson positioned Dr. Cordero in front of the intake desk, her handcuffs still secured. Sergeant Rivera looked at Dr. Cordero, then back at Paulson. "Immigration status verification? What's the underlying call?" "Noise complaint at a residence. Multiple individuals inside. Suspected immigration violations." Dr. Cordero spoke calmly. "Sergeant, I'm Dr. Maria Cordero. I'm a U.S. citizen born in San Antonio. I'm a school district administrator. I was hosting my sister's birthday party in my own home when Officer Paulson demanded identification from all my guests without articulating probable cause or reasonable suspicion of any crime. I asked about Fourth Amendment protections. He arrested me." Sergeant Rivera's expression shifted subtly. The overhead cameras captured him turning to his computer terminal, fingers moving across the keyboard. "Let's run the standard check. Full name and date of birth." "Maria Elena Cordero. March 15, 1982. Born in San Antonio, Texas." The database search took 45 seconds. Sergeant Rivera leaned closer to his screen, his eyebrows rising. He clicked through multiple windows, his expression growing increasingly concerned. The security footage showed him picking up his desk phone. "I need a supervisor to intake. Now." He hung up and looked at Officer Paulson. "She has 0 criminal history, California driver's license, valid registration for the residence address. Employment records show she's an administrator with Corona Norco Unified School District. Doctorate from USC." He paused, reading further. "Born in Behar County, Texas, U.S. Birth certificate on file with the state." Officer Paulson's jaw tightened. "She still obstructed my investigation." "What investigation?" Sergeant Rivera's tone had shifted from professional to pointed. "You arrested a homeowner for asking questions in her own doorway during a noise complaint call?" Dr. Cordero interjected quietly. "Sergeant, I'd like to make my phone call." Rivera nodded immediately. "Absolutely." He gestured to a phone on a nearby desk. Deputy Walsh moved to uncuff her, the action captured from multiple camera angles. Dr. Cordero rubbed her wrists, red marks visible where the metal had pressed into her skin, and lifted the receiver with slightly trembling hands. She dialed her attorney, Marcus Chen, a civil rights lawyer she'd met years earlier at a community education forum. The call connected at 9:48 p.m. "Marcus, it's Maria Cordero." Her voice finally cracked slightly. "I've been arrested. I'm at Presley Detention. I was in my home hosting a family party, and a sheriff's deputy demanded ID from everyone, claimed he was investigating immigration violations. I asked about Fourth Amendment basis. He arrested me for obstruction." A pause as she listened. "Yes, multiple cameras. Body cams, doorbell, neighbors. It's all recorded." The conversation lasted 4 minutes. When she hung up, her composure had partially returned, though her hands still shook. "My attorney is on his way. He'll be here within 30 minutes. Lieutenant Sarah Morrison arrived at intake, summoned by Sergeant Rivera. The three officials conferred in low voices near the desk while Dr. Cordero sat in a plastic chair against the wall, still visible to security cameras. Their body language told a story. Rivera gesturing to his computer screen, Morrison's expression darkening as she reviewed the information, Paulson standing with crossed arms, defensive posture evident. Morrison approached Dr. Cordero directly. "Dr. Cordero, I apologize for this situation. We're going to release you immediately. The arrest appears to have been made without sufficient legal basis." Dr. Cordero stood, her dignity intact despite the 90-minute ordeal. "I want copies of all body camera footage, all intake records, and all documentation related to this arrest. You'll have access through the appropriate public records channels," Morrison replied. Marcus Chun arrived at 10:19 p.m., carrying a leather briefcase and projecting calm professional authority. He was 47 years old, specializing in civil rights litigation for 2 decades, with a particular focus on Fourth Amendment violations and qualified immunity cases. He greeted Dr. Cordero with genuine concern, then turned to the assembled officers. "I'm Marcus Chun, representing Dr. Cordero. I'll need the case number, arresting officer information, and confirmation that all footage has been preserved." He looked directly at Officer Paulson. "You should know we'll be pursuing federal civil rights claims. What happened tonight was a constitutional violation." Dr. Cordero met with Marcus Chun at his downtown Riverside office 3 days after her arrest. On a Tuesday morning when autumn sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the courthouse. Chun had spent 15 years building a practice focused exclusively on constitutional violations, police misconduct, and civil rights litigation. His office walls displayed framed citations from the ACLU, photographs with prominent civil rights leaders, and several landmark case decisions where he'd secured significant judgments against law enforcement agencies. He'd reviewed the preliminary evidence over the weekend and had asked Dr. Cordero to bring any additional documentation she possessed. Chen's assessment was immediate and unequivocal. "Maria, this is one of the clearest Fourth Amendment violations I've encountered in my career. The officer had no warrant, no probable cause, no exigent circumstances, and no consent. You were standing in your own doorway in your own home hosting a lawful gathering. You correctly cited constitutional protections. He arrested you for asserting your rights. The evidence is exceptional." The evidence compilation had begun within hours of Dr. Cordero's release. Chun filed public records requests for all body camera footage from Officers Paulson and Walsh, all dispatch recordings related to the initial noise complaint, all intake documentation from the detention center, and Officer Paulson's complete personnel file including prior complaints. The doorbell camera footage belonged to Dr. Cordero and was immediately available. The neighbor's security camera footage was voluntarily provided within 48 hours. Cell phone recordings from family members added additional perspectives. By the end of the first week, Chen's office had assembled over 90 minutes of video documentation from 7 different sources. The footage review took place over 2 full days in Chen's conference room, with Dr. Cordero present for portions. The recordings showed the complete sequence of events with remarkable clarity. The excellent lighting conditions, both natural streetlight illumination and the home's porch lighting, meant every facial expression, every gesture, every word was captured in high definition. Audio quality was similarly exceptional, with all 3 body cameras and the doorbell system producing clear recordings of the entire exchange. The documentation revealed critical details. Dr. Cordero had clearly stated her citizenship and birthplace. She had accurately cited Fourth Amendment protections, specifically mentioning the need for probable cause or reasonable suspicion. She had asked repeatedly for the legal basis of Officer Paulson's demands. She had explicitly stated, "I do not consent to a search," and "I am not physically resisting." Officer Paulson had escalated despite her compliance, had threatened arrest for asking legal questions, and had proceeded with detention after she voluntarily provided her driver's license proving homeownership. Deputy Walsh's body camera captured her visible discomfort and her failure to intervene despite witnessing questionable police conduct. The intake footage at the detention center showed Sergeant Rivera's immediate concerns upon discovering Dr. Cordero's credentials and citizenship documentation. Multiple camera angles created a comprehensive record that would be difficult for any defense to dispute. The timestamp synchronization showed a precise timeline of events, from the 8:47 p.m. initial contact through the 10:19 p.m. release. The criminal obstruction charge was dismissed within 2 weeks. Riverside County Deputy District Attorney James Patterson reviewed the complete evidence package and consulted with senior prosecutors and legal advisors before making his decision. His dismissal memorandum, filed on October 12, stated, Dr. Cordero's conduct was entirely lawful. She correctly cited Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure. Officer Paulson lacked sufficient legal justification for demanding identification from individuals inside a private residence based solely on an anonymous noise complaint. The homeowner's refusal to consent to a warrantless search and her questions regarding legal basis for the officer's demands were constitutionally protected activities. The arrest appears legally questionable and unsupportable. In the interest of justice and prosecutorial integrity, all charges are hereby dismissed. The dismissal, however, did not address the constitutional violation itself, nor did it provide any remedy for Dr. Cordero's unlawful detention, the invasion of her home's sanctity, or the emotional trauma of being handcuffed and arrested in front of her family. Those concerns would require civil litigation. Marcus Chin filed the federal civil rights lawsuit in the United States District Court for the Central District of California on November 3, exactly 5 weeks after the incident. The case caption read, Maria Elena Cordero versus County of Riverside, Derek Paulson, Jennifer Walsh. The complaint detailed extensive legal claims supported by the substantial video evidence. The causes of action included Fourth Amendment violation for unlawful entry and unreasonable seizure, false arrest and false imprisonment, malicious prosecution for the unfounded obstruction charge, First Amendment retaliation for exercising her right to question government authority, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and deprivation of civil rights under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. The complaint cited the body camera footage, doorbell footage, security camera recordings, witness testimony, and intake documentation as primary evidence. Chun attached still frames from key moments. Dr. Cordero standing peacefully in her doorway, her hands visible and non-threatening. Officer Paulson stepping aggressively toward the threshold. The handcuffs being applied while she verbally confirmed her non-resistance. Her tearful final glance at her home. Settlement discussions began in January, for months after the incident. The county's initial offer arrived via certified letter. $75,000 in exchange for a full release of all claims and a confidentiality agreement. Chen's response was immediate and unambiguous. He rejected the offer within 24 hours without presenting it to his client. This insults the severity of the constitutional violation and the strength of our evidence, he wrote in his rejection letter. The county increased its offer to $350,000 in February, again with confidentiality provisions. Chun rejected this offer as well, this time after consulting with Dr. Cordero. She'd been clear from their first meeting. This wasn't primarily about money, though fair compensation mattered. This was about accountability and establishing that citizens cannot be arrested for asserting constitutional rights in their own homes. A third offer came in March, $800,000, no confidentiality requirement. Chen's response was carefully worded. This case involves fundamental constitutional principles that extend far beyond monetary compensation. Dr. Cordero was arrested in her own home for correctly citing Fourth Amendment protections. The video evidence is irrefutable. Officer Paulson had no legal basis for his demands, his threats, or his actions. The retaliation for asserting constitutional rights cannot be resolved with a settlement that fails to reflect the gravity of these violations. We're prepared to proceed to trial. The trial date was set for December 14th, nearly 15 months after the incident. In the intervening months, legal interest in the case grew substantially. The American Civil Liberties Union filed an amicus brief supporting Dr. Cordero's position. The National Immigration Law Center highlighted the case as an example of Fourth Amendment violations during immigration-related questioning. Legal scholars wrote about the case in law review articles, noting its clarity as a teaching example of unlawful detention and retaliation for rights assertion. Community organizations in Riverside County organized support rallies. Local media coverage intensified as the trial approached. Jury selection took 2 days, concluding on December 15th. The final jury comprised 8 women and 4 men, ranging in age from 27 to 68, representing diverse professional backgrounds including a teacher, an accountant, 2 retired military veterans, a small business owner, and several others. All had confirmed during voir dire that they could fairly evaluate police conduct and apply constitutional standards without bias. The trial began with opening statements on December 16th. The courtroom was filled to capacity. Cordero's family occupied the first 2 rows behind the plaintiff's table. Community members and civil rights advocates filled the remaining gallery seats, and media representatives lined the back wall. Judge Patricia Hernandez, a federal jurist with 23 years on the bench, presided with measured authority. Evidence presentation began on December 17th. The jury watched footage on 3 large monitors positioned throughout the courtroom, seeing the incident from multiple angles simultaneously. They observed 90 minutes of video over the course of 4 hours, with Chun pausing at key moments to highlight specific details. The jury saw Dr. Cordero's calm demeanor, her precise questions about Fourth Amendment requirements, her voluntary presentation of identification, her clear statement of non-resistance as she was handcuffed. They heard Officer Paulson's escalating threats, his inability to articulate specific facts justifying his demands, his retaliatory arrest. They watched Deputy Walsh's uncomfortable body language and her failure to intervene. Several jurors leaned forward during crucial moments, their attention unwavering. The emotional weight in the courtroom was palpable when the footage showed Dr. Cordero's mother crying out that her daughter was an American citizen. After the video presentation concluded, the courtroom remained silent for several seconds. Dr. Cordero testified on December 18th, spending 4 hours on the witness stand. She described her background, her education, her career dedicated to helping young people succeed. She recounted the evening of September 23rd in careful detail. The joy of her sister's birthday celebration, the shock of seeing a uniformed officer at her door, her confusion about why identification was being demanded from her family members, her decision to ask about constitutional protections she'd learned about through her own civic education. Part 5. Resolution and impact. Her voice remained composed throughout most of her testimony, though it wavered when describing the moment the handcuffs closed around her wrists in front of her elderly mother and younger nieces. "My credentials didn't matter in that moment," she told the jury. "My citizenship didn't matter. My rights didn't matter. I was being punished for asking questions, for knowing the Constitution applies to me too, for believing that my home was protected from unreasonable government intrusion." She explained the lasting impact. Anxiety when she heard knocks at her door, nightmares about being detained again, the humiliation of explaining to colleagues and neighbors what had happened, the violation of having her family celebration transformed into a traumatic memory. The jury listened with visible empathy, several members taking extensive notes. Officer Paulson testified on December 19th, his demeanor defensive from the opening questions. Under cross-examination, Chun methodically dismantled his justifications. "Officer Paulson, what specific facts gave you reasonable suspicion that anyone at Dr. Cordero's home was unlawfully present in the United States?" Paulson's response was circular. The nature of the gathering and the individuals present. Chun pressed further. "What about the nature of the gathering? What about the individuals?" Paulson struggled. "It was just the overall circumstances." Chun continued relentlessly. "Dr. Cordero provided you with her driver's license showing she owned the home, correct?" "Yes." "You proceeded to arrest her anyway?" "She was obstructing my investigation." "What investigation?" What crime were you investigating beyond a noise complaint? Paulson had no satisfactory answer. The jury's attention sharpened during these exchanges, their expressions suggesting the officer's responses were damaging his credibility. Professor David Martinez, a constitutional law scholar from UCLA with 30 years of teaching experience, testified as an expert witness on December 20th. He explained Fourth Amendment principles in clear, accessible language. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. It requires government officials to have either a warrant, probable cause to believe a crime has been committed, exigent emergency circumstances, or voluntary consent before entering a home or demanding identification. None of those elements existed here. He reviewed the video evidence and offered his professional opinion. The actions documented in this footage violate well-established constitutional standards that have been clear for decades. Dr. Cordero's questions were legally accurate. Officer Paulson's demands had no legal foundation. Chen's closing statement on December 21st synthesized the evidence into a powerful narrative. The Fourth Amendment exists to protect all of us from exactly what happened to Dr. Cordero. She was in her own home, celebrating her sister's birthday, when government authority arrived at her door without justification and ultimately arrested her for the crime of knowing her rights. Constitutional protections mean nothing if citizens can be detained for asserting them. Authority without legal basis is tyranny. Officer Paulson had no warrant, no probable cause, no emergency, and no consent, yet he proceeded anyway. When Dr. Cordero asked the questions every American should feel empowered to ask, she was handcuffed, removed from her home, and held in custody. This isn't about hostility toward police. It's about the rules that make legitimate policing possible and that protect all of us from government overreach. Your verdict will send a message about whether constitutional rights are real or merely theoretical. Jury deliberation lasted 4 days. Dr. Cordero spent the time with family, supported by her sister and mother, trying to maintain normalcy despite the anxiety of waiting. Community members gathered outside the courthouse each day, holding signs supporting her case. On December 28th, word spread that the jury had reached a verdict. The courtroom filled rapidly, every seat occupied within minutes. Tension hung thick in the air as the jury filed in, their expressions carefully neutral. Judge Hernandez asked the foreperson, a retired teacher named Margaret Chun, if they had reached a verdict. "We have, Your Honor." The foreperson held the verdict form with steady hands. In the matter of Cordero versus County of Riverside and individual defendants, we find in favor of the plaintiff, Dr. Maria Elena Cordero, on all claims. Applause erupted from the gallery. Judge Hernandez allowed it briefly before restoring order. Dr. Cordero covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with relief and vindication. Marcus Chun placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. Officer Paulson stared straight ahead, his expression hardening. Deputy Walsh looked down at the defense table. The damages phase proceeded over the following week. Mental health professionals testified about Dr. Cordero's diagnosed anxiety and trauma symptoms requiring ongoing therapy. Economic experts calculated lost work time and diminished career trajectory opportunities. Family members described the ripple effects of the incident on holiday gatherings and family dynamics, the way fear had replaced security in what should have been the safety of home. Community impact was documented through testimony about chilled exercise of constitutional rights. Citizens afraid to question police authority after witnessing what happened to someone who did. The jury's award was announced on January 6th. Compensatory damages totaled $6 million, covering emotional distress, constitutional violation, lost wages, therapy costs, and reputational harm. Punitive damages added $4.5 million, intended to punish the defendants and deter similar future conduct. The total award of $10,500,000 represented one of the largest civil rights settlements in Riverside County history. Dr. Cordero wept quietly as the amounts were read, her family embracing her from behind the courtroom barrier. Officer Derek Paulson's employment with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department was terminated within 2 weeks of the verdict. The Personnel Board review cited the substantial evidence of constitutional violations, the failure to articulate legitimate law enforcement justification, and the retaliatory nature of the arrest. His case was referred to the California Attorney General's office for potential criminal civil rights violation charges. Deputy Jennifer Walsh received a 30-day suspension without pay and was reassigned from patrol duties to administrative work, with mandatory constitutional law training required before any potential return to field operations. The Riverside County Sheriff's Department announced comprehensive policy reforms in February. New protocols required officers to document specific articulable facts before demanding identification during immigration-related inquiries. Mandatory quarterly training on Fourth Amendment protections was instituted for all deputies. A civilian oversight board was expanded with additional authority to review use of force and detention decisions. Body camera footage review procedures were strengthened. Department leadership explicitly acknowledged that the reforms were direct responses to the Cordero case. Dr. Cordero established the Constitutional Rights Legal Defense Fund with $2 million from her settlement, creating a nonprofit organization offering free legal representation to individuals who experience civil rights violations during police encounters. She began speaking at community forums, universities, and police training academies about Fourth Amendment protections and the importance of knowing constitutional rights. Her testimony before the California State Legislature in March contributed to proposed legislation strengthening protections against pretextual immigration enforcement. The case became a reference point in constitutional law courses across the country. Law professors used the video evidence as teaching material demonstrating clear Fourth Amendment violations. Police academies incorporated the footage into training modules about lawful versus unlawful detention. The case was cited in subsequent civil rights litigation as precedent for retaliation claims when individuals are arrested for asserting constitutional protections. Dr. Cordero eventually returned to hosting gatherings at her home, though she installed additional security cameras and always ensured multiple recording devices were active. She continued her work with at-risk youth, finding new purpose in teaching young people about their constitutional rights and the importance of respectful but firm assertion of those protections. The settlement funds allowed her to reduce her work hours and dedicate more time to civil rights advocacy, transforming personal trauma into community education and empowerment. On the anniversary of the incident, she stood in her doorway, the same doorway where she'd been arrested, and reflected on the journey. "I was terrified that night," she told a reporter. "But I knew I was right about the Constitution. These protections exist for everyone, but they only work if we know them and assert them, even when it's frightening. Documentation saved my case, the cameras proved what happened, and the legal system, though imperfect, ultimately validated what I knew. That my home is protected, that my rights are real, and that authority must be justified, not arbitrary." If you found this educational content valuable, please subscribe and enable notifications. We continue to examine important cases involving constitutional law and civil rights. Understanding these issues strengthens our democratic system and helps protect everyone's fundamental rights. The next case study explores wrongful arrest and the limits of probable cause. Documentation and accountability remain powerful tools for justice.